out into the street, or acting like we don't notice your months of agonizing desperation to get out of the so-called friend zone. You know, let me just give you an example, okay? So, my friend was out the other night and missed a call from her guy best friend at 2 a.m. It was, well, you know what, I'll just play the voice over for you.
Hey, so I was just thinking, so we've been friends for 6 months now. That's pretty long time. And I just wanted to tell you, because I think I should be fully honest with you. Even though we could ruin our friendship, I just wanted to tell you that it's not easy for guitars to say.
Speakers from opposing sides and audience members are free to offer points of information. We encourage general audience participation during our debates. If you hear something you like, you can shout "hear, hear," and if you hear something you don't like, you can shout "nay." We prioritize respect during our debates, and as a result, if anyone has any concerns about what is said tonight, you can contact me via email at eliz@tcdphil.com or our Diversity and Welfare Officer Tomby at elizdiversityandwelfare@tcdphil.com. Speaking tonight on side proposition, we had Tomby Sechi, Tara Krikar, and Adriana Mazur. On side opposition, we have Mia Craven, Neve Bugler, and Tallulah Whaley. I now invite Tanvi Sethi to open the case for side proposition and the debate as a whole.
I think it's time. I don't care if you done it already. We've been at what? 120 views. It's the 120th session of the Eliz, and women have to live and learn eventually, right? And today, I'm Tanvi, and this house believes that men and women cannot be friends. Of course, except this guy I met at the bar last week. We're just friends. Yeah. I'm not naming any names. Do not ask me to name any names. Eric. Yeah, he's alright. He's like 6'3", blonde hair, background artist. His mom's name is Susan, dad's name is Ron. Those two subcommittee is from Monday to Wednesday, 5 to 7, and Ron is on Saturday and Sunday. Go to the gym sometimes. He has a YouTube poster as well. Come on, they're just friends. What else? Just friends. I think that's what Brad Pitt told Jennifer Aniston too. But what infuriates me that though I'm not passing the Bechdel test in the first minute of my first Eliz debate of the year. But unfortunately, I can't run away from the fact that how the closer you get to a heterosexual platonic relationship is the farther you was pushed away once any one of you gets pregnant. And you might be a hypocrite if you disagree with me right now, because I'd like to ask you if you would let your boyfriend have the best friend, perhaps. We all know how that's the ground. The music and media universe is obsessed with friends to melodrama, and I don't have a problem with that. What pisses me off is that we are still living in this stupid 2010s mean girls fantasy and pitting women against each other with the sole purpose of requiring a male friend. And by the way, why does this entire debacle only surround heterosexual relationships? I've never heard a bisexual person have a problem with being friends with anyone, regardless of their gender. Like, I really want you to think right now. I want you all to close your eyes, guys. Seriously. Close your eyes. Please, seriously, close your eyes. I want you to think. I honestly ask yourself, are you gay? This is not educated propaganda. Yeah, what do I want to do friends with Eric? I've lost count of the number of times I've walked back home at night and men over 50 with balding heads have attempted to be friends with me. The number of times I've been ghosted by my male friends once I got into a relationship. And the number of times the guy I was seeing took a step back in the middle of us making out to ask, which is friends, right? Yeah, that happens sometimes. Now, the question that stands before us is asking, do we really want a friendship? Do we want to drink up beer after a soccer night sitting alongside the kids in a bar? Do we want to be comfortable enough to touch and be touched by anybody in the room in a potentially violent fashion, but with an affectionate intention? I don't know how it works. Well, do we want to hear about what men talk about with each other? Like, that is what we talk about, I'm sorry. Actually, you know what? It doesn't matter, because it cannot happen. Alas, if men and women could be friends, I could have been friends with a girl who hated me in high school because she thought I was trying to hit on her boyfriend when that dumb fuck was just trying to copy my answers in an exam. And God forbid, I could have been friends with a 45-year-old woman at the bar who saw his idiot drunk husband of 20 years trying to hit on 19-year-old girls at the bar. And of course, she thought that was because we were all wearing appropriate clothes. Damn it, I could have been friends with my mother when she thought her daughter was progressive enough to look past this shallow notion and believe that you can be friends with anybody. Oh wait, anyone moms, that's the thing. Yeah, I'm still friends with her. Because this is, I'm friends with her and I do believe that this motion is nastier and shallower than the defeat. But who am I? Who am I but only a clown to judge the depths of our discussion today, all wise, still choosing to speak my truth. And to however many men present in this room today, apologies, but this speech wasn't for you. What is for you is that when a 5'3" woman stands in front of everybody to give some
that he had not one, but quote-unquote, a few female friends. So I guess men and women can be friends, contrary to what I was really excited to argue. And you know what? I feel good about this change of heart because I was talking to my mom about this the other day, and I said to her, Mother dearest, do you think men and women can be friends? And she goes, why are you asking me that? And I told her, I said I'm speaking about it in a debate on Tuesday, and personally, I don't think they can. I go on this long tangent, I explain my rationale to her, and by the end of it all she can do is look at me and go, yeah, you have a very low opinion of men. And she continues, maybe you should keep your personal life and opinions outside of the chamber debate. Leave that at the door. And she said, surely there's like a book or something written on the topic, and you can just talk about that instead. And you know what? I've decided that my mother is 100% right. A dignified, tactful, discreet woman absolutely would keep her personal life to herself and avoid at all costs extrapolating personal experiences to big truths about relationships in the world. So yeah, again, I'm tossing the deep-seated misandry aside and embracing wholeheartedly male and female friendship. And my initial argument was going to hinge on this idea that, men and women cannot be friends, but with some exceptions. But what good is a rule with exceptions, right? There are exceptions. Like, for example, about 20 minutes after my mom shamed me, she comes back to me and she says, your Uncle Liam has female friends, like proper friends. They go out for lunch together and stuff. And she did say, although your dad and I have always thought he was gay. So yeah, there are exceptions to what the proposition might tell you is the rule. I have actually compiled an exhaustive list of men with whom I have sustained strictly platonic friendships. Number one is my dad. And then beside that, I wrote, yes, contrary to popular belief, I have one of those. Number two is my aforementioned cousin Sam. And then number three is my goldfish, Goldie. Now, I'm not like 100% sure of the fish's sex. I don't know how to sex a fish, and even if I did, I'm not sure if I would really want to. But I did figure it's like a 50-50 shot. It's a guy, so I didn't want to leave he or she out in case he or she is a he, because he would be sad then, maybe. Now, don't get me wrong, although I just listed my long list of male friends, I don't think male-female friendship is easy by any means. And for most of my conscious life, I was a femcel. That's an involuntarily celibate female. I know it's so hard to believe, but it's true. Now, what does it mean to be a femcel? Well, it was ugly, and men could not stand me, let alone befriend me. Now, this time, it left me with some deep-seated insecurities. Now, back in the day, the only man in my life who seemed to regard me as a fellow human being was this definitely gay, albeit closeted and staunchly Catholic guy in my French class. When you are an unattractive woman, by and large, don't want to generalize, men will at best deny your existence, and at worst just like bully you and call you ugly to your face, and place traffic cones over your head while you're trying to get books from your locker. That is a true story, by the way. And now that I'm a bit less ugly, every man I thought I was friends with was just kind of like playing the long game. Very, very dedicated to this super subtle courting process. And in some ways, I do admire their resilience, but I'm not great with social cues, and I wish they would just say what they mean instead of feigning friendship for 6 months before asking if they can kiss you, or send you a picture of their willy via Instagram. But again, I want to reiterate, not all men. Not all men. Here's the facts. My family members are male people. That closeted gay guy in my French class
Tara, and this year I'm treasurer of the Eliz. Now, as treasurer of this fabulous society, I may be slightly biased in my position. Because, well, a rumor's been going around that the Eliz is filled with girls who have a hard time maintaining purely platonic friendships with fraternity lads. And for that matter, it seems we can't really have any relations with the opposite sex at all. But, alas, I'm here, having volunteered as tribute to spill all my lore on the very first week of college, which I'm sure will come back to bite me in the ass for the rest of the academic year, since what happens in the GMB is known to never stay in this godforsaken building. And to my disadvantage, I've been told that I look like a dysfunctional mom, so I'm easily recognizable. But whatever, I'll persevere, or I'll kill myself. Either way, I can't back down now. To me, there are two main reasons why men and women can never really be just friends: conversation and sex. Now, I know all you filthy whores want me to skip to the good part and get straight into sex, but my dear friends, and men, until I get there. Conversation, what about it? To me, the highlight of my friendships in Trinity have been skipping my lectures to sit on a bench and chat shit for hours with the girls. The content of that shit is more often than not men. More specifically, the men that are hopelessly failing to meet our embarrassingly low standards. Freshers, beware. Trinity men will inevitably disappoint you, but do not let that scare you away from making bad decisions. Because there's just no better way to make friends, reserved for just the girls, of course, than bonding over that one time you got horribly drunk and got with a, to put it nicely, questionable shortcake. And I'm not talking about me. Only to run into him the next day in your lecture. And who am I kidding? That definitely did not just happen once. But to get back to it, conversation. As hard as I've tried, I've just never succeeded in having a proper girly chat with someone from the opposite sex. They just don't feed into my delusions the way the girls do. And sorry, if you are incapable of convincing me that my library crush, who I've never even made eye contact with, is actually the love of my life and has been secretly pining over me for all this time, I don't want it. And if somehow the topic of conversation isn't boys, and I actually manage to have a good chat with a guy that isn't filled with awkward pauses where I'm scavenging my brain trying to think of the next thing to say, I will 1000% start picturing my life with him. Not excluding the very cute babies we have, except he's ugly. Which, based on my track record, is apparently not enough to stop me from picturing us on our wedding date either. Don't be surprised, I already told you I was delusional, and you can throw blind into that mix as well. On to sex. And with that, my embarrassing lore. Once upon a time, not long ago, I was actually not a whore. Instead, I was in a committed relationship. Now, as all good things do, they come to an end. This one, more specifically, when I moved to Dublin to start my first year. But, like the silly little idiots we were, we thought we could stay friends. Because, you know, it ended amicably for a Brit. I don't know why it took you 800 years, it only took me a couple texts. But then, Christmas came around, and with that, my return back home. But before my return, on a rainy Wednesday afternoon in December, he texted me and was like, "So, what's the vibe when you're back?" To which I maturely responded, albeit after a mental breakdown, "We're just friends." Again, my delusions really had me believing that. So much so, in fact, that I actually placed a bet with my best friend that I would ride a base for the entire month of January if I slept with my ex. And guys, I really tried. I mean, I wanted her to stop smoking, and I did! But when I had the chance between saving my best friend's lungs and my sex life on the other, you best believe I chose to ride. In my defense, it took a full 3 hours, and then I lasted a full 3 hours. I may sound American, but I know the exchange rate in pounds down. and women. Now, if you're a woman thinking that, I get it. Because you know we actually have to feel something to sleep with a guy. But for men, all they have to feel is an erection. And so, friends and men in the room, as the wise Harry once said, men and women can't be friends, because the sex part always gets in the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara, for that very kind speech, and I now invite Eliz to continue the case for the opposition.
So this is actually the first time that I've ever been in a room where I'm suddenly the strongest advocate for men. So that's kind of crazy, first of all. But this motion kind of spoke to me immediately because this thing I have a lot of personal perspectives and personal experience on, so I feel very strongly about it, right? Because I'm actually known for a very unfortunate habit of mine, and that habit is every time that I make a close male friend, I accidentally soft launch them on Instagram. I forget that when you post what I see as an aesthetic sunset photo where my friend Owen happens to be there, everyone else sees it as a romantic date. And I just kind of expect you to be able to infer, right? Because from my perspective, I just love to post a little candid photo of my friends, exactly like I do with my female friends. Because if you know me, you know I'm a sucker for a photo talk. But unfortunately, from everyone else's perspective, I have about 4 boyfriends at once. I knew it became a problem when my own close friends thought that I was in a new relationship because I posted a photo of a guy in our own friend group, and he was also gay. And then I recognized that my soft launching was just done that efficiently, without even being intentional. But however, this experience and the way that I get absolutely shot on every single time I try to defend myself really got me thinking about these male and female friendships and why we treat them the way they do, and why does me posting a photo of my friend Adam so much more different than me posting a photo of my friend Larry? The proposition brings up a lot of fair points, but I think a lot of what they talk about is not a product of men and women being somehow biologically incapable of friendship, but rather on a lot of different external factors. I think I'm an expert on this because I went to a Catholic all-girls school for 6 years. This, along with doing the famously male-dominated sports of figure skating and gymnastics, meant that by the age of 14, I lived in my own man-free utopia. But this came with one drastic caveat. I became genuinely allergic to men. I would see a primary school acquaintance on the train and shrivel in fear. There was one singular boy in my gymnastics class, and I would genuinely tremble for about 5 minutes after he asked me to pass him the dumbbell, right? And during this time is when I really bought into the narrative behind this debate. I truly believed that they were practically a different species, and that no well-intentioned, genuine friendship could ever actually form between us. But then I did this thing called growing up and touching grass. And by that I knew I went to college, right? Because what I want to talk about is because going to college was the first time that I was actually presented with more than one man at a time. So this means that I was kind of forced to look at them in a way that was platonic, right? And I found out that I actually have a lot of things in common with a lot of men, shockingly, right? Because I think that having close friendships with men is actually very productive because I think it builds such resilience and character, right? I got the previously mentioned accidental boyfriends with a really good friend Adam. Niall finds me a partner, right? So I told him I was speaking in this thing. And he replied, so I go, hey, any ideas for this? And his response, and I quote, lad, not gonna lie, just talk about us. Because, no offense, but we are never going to be anything more than friends. I was like, cool. Thank you. But I face this kind of brutal humbling every single day, being constantly reminded that I'm too emotionally unstable to date. And this kind of crude honesty is something that can only really come from men, because so many of them just lack the emotional intelligence to deliver a message delicately. So when I was recovering from the most traumatic situationship of my life, where a man told me in the same night that he loved me, and then that he wasn't ready for a relationship, because if we're in a relationship, that means I'm bound to you. My female friends came with the tissues, they came with the chocolates, and they allowed me to wallow in self-pity, but not mine. I delivered the story expecting a gasp, a hug, some comfort, and he laughed. He goes, you dated a prick, and you got surprised when he acted like a prick. His demeaning tone and his willingness to remind me of the time that I got my heart broken by a man with a bowl cut. It first, thank you. She's like not a bowl cut. But it first hand embarrassing myself out of my depressive episode. It forced me to realize what I looked like to the outside world. It forced me to realize how pathetic I was acting. And that is something that can only come from the uncharted confidence of a straight man. Right? Like my fellow opposition member, I too have faced gun cell allegations. But by the end of my first year of university, I actually came to the conclusion that my male friendships are 10 times more valuable, not than female friendships, but 10 times more valuable to me than romantic relationships, right? Because it turns out that when you allow yourself to interact with a man without the sense of delivered 16 hours ago, fuck. When you allow yourself to form relationships with people without putting these kind of expectations and these narratives that Prof talks about, when you allow relationships to form independently of this, it actually works. Shockingly. So, what happens is when we internalize a lot of the one-dimensional views of proposition, it's exactly what comes in the way of good friendships. And I hate to say it because I support women's rights and wrongs, but sometimes we can actually also be a problem. Right? So, and I just think a lot of the sentiments that come from prop vengeance stem from with all due respect, a skill issue or a love issue. Because I have had some of the best gossip sessions ever with my male friends because they just, again, they don't deliver things delicately. Again, every time I'm reminded of the bowl cup, it's just so much more freeing than women who feel the need to be nice and to be presentable and to be socially acceptable, right? And sometimes it's nice to just know how the other side is. I feel sorry for anyone who has not experienced the joy of a gay man who gets to antagonize someone that we mutually hate. And these two are the best experiences, two of the best friendships of my life. So, again, recovery is possible. One can, in fact, go from being a femcel to being the first person in this debate who is actually voluntarily defending men. Change is possible. So for all of these reasons, go home and tell your male friends you love them. Hug them a little extra tightly, even if they give you a weird look for it, because it turns out they are deserving of platonic friendship too. Thank you.
Getting the sides of the motion, and that's the only thing I can do. That's also the reason why I have 100 words on this page and I need to make 7 minutes out of that somehow, which is bad. But secondly, there was a very specific situation that happened. I accidentally ended up at the male besties hangout, and don't get me wrong, there was 3 guys. I liked all of them. I thought I was friends with all of them. Then I also ended up seeing each other, one of them, which is probably supporting the 2 previous speakers, but that's not the point of that. I ended up there, and I realized that men cannot have friends, at all. It's not I know, it's not funny, it's tragic. Guys, it's tragic. They were not 3 random guys, they were actually the little guys, the long ones, the good ones. I expected more of them. We're sitting in chocolates, we're having pints, 3 hours. You're talking about sports exclusively. Football, basketball, golf, something I didn't know. I had no clue what this conversation was about. From time to time, one of them were oh, this conversation is probably super boring for you. But like, they were like, oh, it's probably terrible for you. And I was like, yeah, it's like actually quite awful. And they continued this conversation. and that happened like a couple of times. That wasn't one time. Like all three of them had the moments of like extra awareness. Like, oh, you feel terrible right now, right? Yeah, I do. Oh, okay, we're good. So I don't really know why the comparative in this debate is dating. I don't want to date most of the men that I see. Like, don't approach me, please. Actually, like, why do people talk about that dating in this debate? Like, I don't want to speak with most male people I've seen in my life. Or maybe I'm considering myself. I'm healing from a very weird situation. We're just after the summer. Like, guys, it's okay. So the comparative is different. Men actually physically cannot really have friends. And I've listed 4 things they lack and why we cannot have friends. 1, the understanding of a concept of a chill hangout that doesn't involve alcohol. Think about this. I've seen this guy, and at some point I told him like, oh, it's the 3rd time we see each other this week, and that's also the 3rd time I'm drinking alcohol. Not like I'm like complaining about this in Polish, it's fine, it's okay. But it's like, what do you do with your friends usually? Like, what you're doing? Oh, no, I know, we have pints, we watch football, we play games, then we also drink alcohol. It's like, okay, what do you do with your friends? I know, I have a brunch with my friends. Like, have you ever seen 2 men having brunch? Like, imagine 2 men having brunch. Imagine two men grabbing a matcha latte. Imagine 2 men going for a sweet treat between the lectures. That is not happening. They've never been sober talking to each other. Never. Second thing they lack, emotional maturity. I'm not going to give up. You just know this. 3, the ability to gossip. I disagree with me very massively. If you want somebody who's straightforward, be friends with Eastern Europeans. It's not a problem of women. It's a problem of like British politeness and Irish politeness culture. Like I also hate this. Whatever. The ability to gossip. Yeah. Oh yeah, but like something can be accessible and very helpful. And like his best friend broke up with his girlfriend, and he told me about this. And I was like, oh, why? What happened? How does it feel? Oh, I don't know. What do you mean you haven't asked? How are your friends? Like, I know everything about every single friend of my friend of my friend. Like, obviously, what you're talking. Sports for 3 hours. 4thly, the ability to care and show emotions. I know Niall that Eve was talking about. Niall is a very interesting case in this debate. Niall has 0 ability to care, and Eve told you about that. And that's what guys are doing. That is necessary in friendship, that we care about each other. The problem is, and that is going to my second argument, even if men could physically have friends, men and women have very different perceptions and definitions of friendships, which means that it is impossible for them to have friendships between each other. Because for Niall, punching you and making fun of you is a definition of friendship. But I've experienced so much love and caring and understanding in my female friendships, which would be considered like a weird situationship if I would do this with a guy. Like hugging your guy friends without like any context, weird. Hugging your female friends, absolutely normal. Sending cute little animals, being like, oh, that's us, to your female friend. Oh, this is that man this to me. Oh, is this guy hitting with me? Like, is this him flirting? Like, why are these 2 cats going down the road? I'm absolutely these 2 cats going down the road with my female besties. So I think that at the end of the day, you have very different socializations. It's not because of biological factors, I agree with me on that. But this because of the social factors. Men were never taught how to care about people, that caring about people is cool and important, and you can show your emotions, and then you can they know nothing about. And I don't know, I hope they enjoy it, but they cannot ever experience the love of the female friendship. For the legal reasons and for the reasons of my old male besties, all of this was a joke. I love all of you. I love drinking with you because unfortunately, people here cannot match my polo drinking abilities, especially women. That's sad. That's what men are for. Thanks.
constructing themselves as a society in which they breed their own to gaze upon women as something intimate to be captured and feasted upon, rather than as someone with which their simple presence can be purely and innocently enjoyed. That is not my burden to try and analyze, it is not my burden to try and defend. If it is true that men have flown too far into the red-pilled sun, then it is the feathers of their own wings which will burn as they fall. And I will not waste my breath attempting to understand it, simplify it, or discharge them from that colossal, centuries-damaging misdeed. Because I am a woman, and my responsibility within the context of this debate is to prove from my own experience and better judgment that women still, despite all, retain the choice. The choice of whether or not to befriend a man, even considering the fact that it may be true they will never see her as only a friend. Because the thought that a straight man is incapable of seeing a woman from a non-sexual perspective has nothing to do with whether or not I think that straight man is my friend. But it has everything to do with the extent to which the patriarchy has molded itself into his genetic code. And I may spend a lifetime with this straight man, considering him to be my friend, all the while he's thinking about what it would be like to shadow me, or what I'd be like as a wife, as a mother. But that would have no bearing over whether or not I consider this man to be my friend. It would be upon him to come up here to this podium to defend his moral position within that friendship. A hard truth I've only recently learned as I entered my final year of university is that men tend to only appreciate in women what is useful to them, and therefore do not really know women at all, and furthermore cannot ascertain what skills and attributes women possess that would actually enrich their lives if they only learned to quietly listen and appreciate. Women have evolved in ways that the patriarchy has not afforded men. Our very survival has depended upon supporting each other and recognizing in people who they are, who might be of help to us, and who might bring us harm. Men just are. Sometimes they help, sometimes they harm, but they have not developed the intellectual and emotional nuance that brings true connection. So can women be friends with men? Naturally. The question, however, remains, why would they want to? Why would I befriend a man when I can befriend a woman? But this is not what matters. What matters is that we, on both sides of this debate, have the choice. And we do. We have the choice of whether or not to make friends with Rasa, and thank God for that. So I urge you to oppose this motion. Not because women shouldn't be friends with men, but to ensure that we can.
Thank you to Lulu for that very fine speech, and thank you to all speakers for speaking tonight. Just a reminder that we've got a wine reception next door in Convo, and we'll be having afters at the PAV. In a minute, I'm going to ask you to shout A if you support the motion, and nay if you oppose the motion. All those